Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So as I finish up the 74 CT70 K3 and the Z50 JS monkey bike, I'm getting ready to kick off two new projects. I will have individual overview videos on these two bikes coming up soon as I put on the final touches, but wanted to give you a preview of the two bikes that I'm about to start. I really like working on both of these bikes at the same time. There's a lot of downtime in between waiting for parts to arrive and waiting for paint to dry and other steps that it always gave me something to do when I had a few moments to be in the garage working on it. So I'm going to start two CT70 projects at the same time, but the two couldn't be any more different. One I'm going to start as a full restore, that's the 1970 bike, and the other is going to be a pretty wild bike that I intend to rival the CT190, which I recently sold. So the goal for both bikes are pretty open at the moment. The 1970 restoration is going to be the best restoration that I've done. It's going to be as authentic as I can make it. And the goal for the more wild bike, other than looking awesome and riding well, is to make more power than the CT190 did. So I've got a lot of latitude on that one, much less latitude on the restoration, but it should be fun to see these two bikes come together at the same time, but again, be very different. So let me roll these two away and I'll show you the two bikes as they're starting now. I think it'll be nice to juxtapose that against what these bikes look like when they're done. So these are the two bikes that I'm going to build. I actually showed both of these in an earlier video when I was overviewing a haul of CT70 stuff that I had picked up, but the one that's kind of complete is the one that's going to be a full restoration. This is a 1970 frame and it's in very good condition. Looking carefully across everything, there's no dents, very little body work that needs to be done. There is some work on the front forks, but actually I'll probably use a separate set of front forks. The engine's in good shape. It obviously needs to be cleaned up, and in this one I think I'm going to tear it down all the way, including pulling the halves apart so that it can be in as new condition as possible. But I learned a lot on the 74 bike as I did some motor work there, so confident that I'll be able to get this not only in good looking shape, but in the best running shape possible. I think I'm going to do it in the sapphire blue color that I did the 1969 bike in. On the 69 bike though, I used a powder coat. It was called transparent blue and it looked very close. In this case though, since I'm going for that high quality restoration, my plan is to do an actual candy paint of that actual color. So that'll allow me to do some additional body work that I'm not able to do with fillers on the powder coat. Plus I'll also be able to color the headlight bucket the correct color, and it'll just be that much more authentic. On this actual bike, I'm not too sure how much I'm going to keep. The frame and the motor, obviously. Again, I have separate front forks, and the top triple tree I'll probably keep. The rims and hubs I will keep if they're serviceable. Other than that, let's see, the tank I'll probably also retain, and maybe a few things like the seat latch. But the rest of it I'm probably going to source new or better quality old parts, because things like the fenders, the shocks, a lot of the other parts like the handlebars are too far gone to bother restoring. I found most of the chrome parts, it's always going to be almost twice as expensive to re-chrome it as it is to just source brand new old stock parts. So this is the restoration 1970 bike that'll be kicking off here pretty soon, and I'm excited about that. Then this, I call it a bike, right now it's really only a frame, is going to be my wild bike. Again, with the objective of being a higher performance bike than the CT190, which when dynoed, I believe made 17 horsepower and 10 foot-pounds of torque, which was more than my 2019 Honda Monkey with all the modifications that I put into that. And the CT190 was crazy fast. It went faster than I was comfortable riding it actually. So on this bike there's going to be a lot of attention to the suspension, but again also the power, because my goal is to get it on the dyno and have it be making more power than that CT190 did. Lots of options to try to figure out how I'm going to do that, and that's going to be part of the fun in this build. So this frame again was in that earlier video. This was the 1972 frame that was red. I had it sandblasted so that I could see everything that was wrong with it. And it's actually in really good shape. There weren't any rust holes that showed through after the sandblasting. The one big problem is this hole here. This was where there was a switch that was installed, and unfortunately the person that did it didn't even make a nice round hole. I'm not sure how you made such a terrible looking hole, but I'm going to have to figure out how I fill this. Again, since I'm planning on doing a paint on this as well and not a powder coat, I can weld in a plate and then just use filler to make it perfect without having to worry about too much grinding. Down here, there's also a lot of pockmarking from rust that didn't go through, but it's enough that I'm going to need to use some filler to clean it all up so that it looks as smooth as possible. These bikes also had really lousy welds in a lot of areas that I'm going to grind down and smooth out and have look as sharp as I can before I get the coat of paint on it. And I bought a few new steering stops from Trail Buddy. I had mentioned in that prior video that I had used Mike's Mini Trail to get steering stops, which are about $25 a piece. One of the commenters in that video mentioned that Trail Buddy has steering stops for only $5 a piece. They don't look quite as sharp or as perfectly finished as the ones from Mike's Mini Trails, but honestly this is before paint, so it's easy for me to file off some of these burr marks, and it has the same curvature. It looks like it's going to install just as well, so for 15 bucks for 3, it seems like a much better deal. Anyway, so I need to weld this on, get this hole fixed up, and then figure out where I go from there. Since I'm looking for a little more stability in the suspension, I'll probably go with an extended swing arm. I'm not sure what the suspension setup's going to be. I want the bike to be lowered like the CT190 was, but I'm going to have it be a little bit higher than that bike, maybe half an inch, just so I have a little more ground clearance and that it's a little more practical to ride around. The first thing is to get some of these problem areas figured out so that it's ready to paint, and then I can make a final decision on the color that it's going to be. But both of these projects should be fun. Again, I expect to spend some time on it. I think it took about 2 months for the last 2 projects. These may be a little bit longer because, again, the restoration, I'm going to be doing a lot of hunting for the perfect parts, so I expect that to be one of the longer poles in the tent of this build. And this one, I have a feeling that I'm going to go back and forth quite a few times in exactly what the bike's going to look like and the performance mods that I'm going to use, and have it be a faster bike than the gray CT190 was. Something that I wanted to point out that I did to this frame before I had it sandblasted, and definitely need to do before you get it painted, is remove the VIN plate that was located here. This had a really good looking VIN plate. Sometimes they're really banged up or torn, and there's no real point in trying to keep those, but this one looked fantastic. So what I did was, there's these little nails that are actually like screws that go in these 2 holes, and then the plate itself also has some 3M tape. The tape itself is obviously 50 years old, so while it's still holding, it's really easy to break apart. What I found is an easy approach to getting those nails out, though, is to use a Dremel to make a nice little flat spot, because right now it's convex, so it's difficult to get a drill bit on it. But if you use a Dremel to make a little flat spot or even a slight indentation, then it's pretty easy to get a drill on and just drill those 2 holes through so that you can release those nails. And then I just use an X-Acto knife to carefully take out all of the glue and pull it apart without creasing it as I remove it. So I'm really excited to get these 2 builds going. I've started a few things, but I'm waiting to finish up the Monkey and the 74 CT70 before I go full bore and really start tearing into these. So anyway, thanks everybody for watching. Stay tuned for more videos and keep on building.